there's a lady who hikes here at this nature preserve fairly regularly. I don't see her every time I'm here, but I'd say at least once a week when I come. Because I come probably about 3 times a week when I'm training. I see her about once of every 3 of those times. And first time I ever saw her, she was literally hugging a tree. And I walked by and just kind of looked at her for a second, tried not to stare, And she looked so blissed out. I thought, oh my God, this chick is high. Which is, fine, do what you want to do. But couldn't help but notice she must be flying on something. And so I, just smiled and nodded and walked on by. And then I saw her again doing the same thing. And I think the 3rd time I saw her, she was hugging a different tree. And I stopped and said hi. Because, we'd seen each other a few times now, and it's kind of, you see the same person over and over, and eventually you just get that, automatic comfort level. And plus, I was just really curious, like, are you always high when you're out here? I didn't say that, but I was, wondering. And so I stopped and talked to her briefly, and finally I said, you must really like trees, huh? Every time I see you out here, you're hugging a tree. And she said, oh, no. I know it sounds, or it looks strange, but she goes on to relay this really interesting story to me. She talks about how when she was little, she and her grandfather used to come here all the time. And he would teach her about trees and the animals and the bugs and just everything. He was very outdoorsy, really peaceful guy who just liked being outside, really didn't like crowds, didn't like noise and the urban environments. And, I could totally relate to that. So I thought, wow, this must be a really cool guy. And she's, talking about how he was basically her favorite person growing up. Because the rest of the family was very loud and opinionated and just very different from her grandfather. So when she was like 10, I think she said. And again, this is like secondhand now. She told me this last year. So, but I'm pretty sure I've got the exact details. And I guess it doesn't really matter how old she was. But she was around 10. And he passed away. And it was heartbreaking, of course. But in his, his will and his end of life wishes or whatever, he wanted to be cremated. And he wanted his ashes scattered around the bases of the biggest trees in this park. And that's amazing. I thought that was a great idea. It's probably pretty close to what I'm going to do. Frankly, I don't ever want to die. People say, I don't want to live forever. That would be boring. No, fuck that. I would love to live forever. I would give anything to live forever. Dying is the only thing that I really fear in life. But if I have to die, I want to die and be cremated in the Viking way, put on a raft and set on fire and pushed off into the ocean. That'd be awesome. Anyways, he got cremated, and then his wife, this woman's grandmother, put him in an urn and put him on the bookshelf or the mantle or whatever, just somewhere in the house. And this woman, as a little girl, she thought this was horrible, absolutely horrible. She was so upset. She knew what her grandfather wanted, and nobody else really gave a damn. Other than cremation, they did whatever they wanted. And so the grandfather's ashes stayed on the shelf for a couple years. And then I guess when this girl was like 12 or 13, and she was staying with her grandmother one weekend or something, she emptied out the urn into some container and put some ashes from the fireplace in its place. And she snuck the container out here the next week, and she scattered his ashes at the base of the biggest trees in the park. And so periodically she's been coming here ever since then, and she'll hug those trees and just kind of talk to her grandfather, the way people go to the cemetery and fill their deceased loved ones in on their day and all that stuff. And I just saw it, wow. You pass someone, you think they look crazy. They're doing something that doesn't make any sense to you. But if you take the time to really talk to them, you'll start to realize just how amazing so many different lives are. I'm not sure if I've mentioned it before, but I really have a hard time thinking about other people as individuals. It's one of the issues with my personality disorder, where for most of my life I kind of viewed everyone as extras in my movie. I mean, it sounds cold and just psychopathic, which it is, but I mean, it's not something that I choose to do. I'm not choosing to see people that way. It's just how I did. For the longest time, I really struggled with that. My sisters actually helped me. My sisters and my wife, all three of them, in their own ways, helped me to understand that other people exist completely separate of me, have completely complex internal existences, and I still struggle with it almost reflexively, but like any person who grows up, you kind of have to learn to put aside your own natural proclivities. And mine is to kind of think I'm the only real person in existence. So I really have to push that aside, and coming across people like this and talking to them, getting to know these minute behaviors have large backstories sometimes, and really moving backstories. It helps me to recontextualize humanity as a group of 8 billion individuals, totally separate from, but also just like me. And I think that if we all took a little more time, you don't have to become friends with people. You don't have to give them your number and have dinner and become godparents to their dog or something. I don't know. You don't have to do any of that. Just fucking talk to people. Just talk to them. Less about yourself than about them. And even if you don't struggle with seeing people as separate, it'll still have its own benefit. And, just like every harm in life, every benefit also ripples outward. So that's something I just thought about today, because I passed her. I walked by and she's like, "Hey, I haven't seen you in a while." I said, "Yeah, I haven't been out here as much all the last several months." She asked me how my hike went last year, and I had to admit, I failed, but I'm going back again, so that's cool. But yeah, so I passed her, and that reminded me of that story from last year. So when you're done watching YouTube, go out, and if you see somebody doing something curious, talk to them. Hell, I mean, even if you don't see anything curious, most people love to talk about themselves, not just us narcissists. So go out there, talk. All right? I gotta keep walking.